how you can overcome social anxiety in 3 simple steps. And I'm going to be explaining exactly what social anxiety is, how you can overcome it, and how you can get through it today. Before we get started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and that bell icon so that you get notified whenever I post. But other than that, let's find out about social anxiety. So first things first, what is social anxiety? Obviously, anxiety is the feelings of worry, unease, of fear. So social anxiety is the feelings of worry, unease in a social situation. So for example, you may want to go out with your friends, but you are fearful, you are uneasy, you worry that something bad is going to happen. Therefore, you feel 3 types of ways. So these 3 types of ways, 1, 2, and 3, I'm going to be explaining because anxiety in general is made up of 3 factors. So the first one we've got is physiological. This is where we start to go red, we start to sweat, we can feel the physical sensation in our body. For example, you have the butterflies in your stomach. You just feel like you're shaking. You don't know what to, you're literally like that. You start to freeze, your muscles start to tense, etc. And one of the greatest little things that I want to give you a little spice to this video is what I heard, and which I really love, is we're not necessarily going to have to eliminate anxiety. And imagine it like those butterflies. They're flying all over the place. They're going crazy. Imagine what would happen if you allowed those butterflies to fly in formation. And this comes from mindfulness, meditation, all those types of things that allow you, and breathing techniques that allow you to slow everything down. So the first one, as I said, is physiological. So the second one is cognitive. Cognitive is just a fancy word for thoughts or thinking, essentially. So obviously you've got the first one of the physiology, how you're feeling. The second one is I'm going to mess up, I'm going to screw up, they're going to laugh, they're going to do this is going to happen, something bad's going to happen. And we get our thoughts going round and round and round, and not in a positive way. They tend to go in a negative way. Obviously, if you're feeling that feeling of anxiety, then they're going to be in the negative frame of mind. And the third one is behavioural. This could be when someone's looking at you, you just don't look them in the eyes, or you start to stutter. And there's something in your behaviour, and this can be seen from an external source. So someone else could say, you seem to look anxious right now. Obviously, the feeling and the cognitive, they're not necessarily going to be spotted by someone else, especially the cognitive isn't. The physiological can be, because obviously if you're sweating, if you're going bright red, it can be. But the behaviour is more seen from someone else. So the stuttering, they've got a nervous stutter, things like that, and that's what they say. Now, anxiety in general is made up of all 3 of these, so you don't necessarily just feel one. You won't necessarily just have negative thoughts. You can do, but you're going to experience realistically all 3 throughout your life if you feel that anxious feeling and you class yourself as someone who has anxiety. Now, one of the first things I want to do before we move any further is I want you to differentiate yourself between anxiety. Because the more we think something, over time it becomes our personality, and we are one with that of anxiety. The first thing we need to do is split ourselves and realise I am me and I feel anxious sometimes. I am not anxiety, I sometimes feel anxious, or I feel anxious. As soon as we dissociate, straight away we start to take a step forward. And remember this, one of my favourite quotes is by Martin Luther King: you don't have to see the whole staircase in order to take the first step. And the truth behind this is incredible. Because what this is saying is that, yes, you may be feeling anxious, but you don't have to think about being the most confident person in the world before you start to disassociate, before you start to change your thoughts, before you start to become aware. And obviously I'm going to explain what EAI actually means in a moment. So make sure you keep watching until you understand the actual process of how to reduce and control your anxious feelings. It's not your anxiety, it's your anxious feelings that you will eventually release. I promise you, you can. I've done it, and I know many people have done it, and I've helped many people do this. So I'm now going to explain exactly how we battle, we combat, and we take on anxiety itself. So first things first is we need to exposure. We need to do some form of exposure therapy. And this is why when you're with a therapist, they may role play, or they may help you create. And this isn't necessarily, so the last one, which I will get into in a moment, this isn't actually going out into everyday world and start to use this. It's just exposing yourself to when those anxious or that anxiety pops up. So as I said, exposure therapy can be done in therapy, or you can expose yourself to little things and start to role play with friends. Ideally, I will always recommend to work with someone because they know what they're talking about. And the greatest example I can use is if you're going to get your tyres changed on your car, would you do it yourself or would you pay someone else to do it just to get the job done properly? If you were going to get the engine sorted out, I don't know, you would pay someone who knows what they're doing because it's just going to save you time, hassle, worry, and stress. So save yourself, especially with anxiety, the time, worry, hassle, and stress by doing exposure therapy with someone who knows what they are doing. The second one is awareness. And when I say awareness, I mean awareness of our thoughts, our beliefs, what we are thinking. And also going back to sort of the cognitive, we're understanding what are we thinking? What are our thoughts? What do we believe? Because a lot of the time, well, pretty much all the time with anxiety, the reason we feel anxious is we feel like something bad is going to happen. We feel like there's going to be something bad that will happen in the future. When 99% of the time, the things that we feel are going to be bad, they're not actually going to put us in physical danger. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't feel the feelings of anxiety. You don't feel because you do. And I get that. I totally understand that. But if you are aware that thinking public speaking is going to literally ruin my life is not, then we start to begin to change our actions and our inputs into what we are doing. So for example, like I said, public speaking, I'll use that as an example. It's not actually going to put you in physical danger. Unless, for example, there's an assassin that is there to kill public speakers. If that's the case, then yes, you're in physical danger, so I get that. But if there's a tiger running at you, it makes sense to be fearful. It makes sense to have the physiological feeling of, I've got to get out of here, have the cognitive thoughts of, where can I get to, and have the behaviours of, and just start running. That makes perfect sense. But public speaking, it doesn't actually make sense because you're not in real danger. So when I say awareness, that's what I mean, is being aware of our thoughts. Can you see that? Being aware of our thoughts and what we are really thinking and saying, is this really the truth? Or is this something that is a lie? Because we need to realize that. If you don't realize that, then you're never going to be able to change it. So the first thing is expose ourselves to it, become aware of the thoughts we are thinking. And then the third one, which is the most important, integrate. And I love this word, integrate. But the reason I like this word is because we actually start to implement what we've learned here. We expose ourselves to the practice. We practice it, essentially. We become aware of our thoughts, what we're thinking. Then we actually start to apply it or integrate it into our daily life. So it's really a three-step process. We don't need to start applying anything into our daily life until we've first been exposed to the things that cause us anxiety. And start to realise that, as I said, we don't need to know the 10th step in order to take the first one. Because the first one is going to be the hardest step. It always is. Because it's getting started with something new. But we need to understand that once we expose ourselves, we become aware, we can start integrating that into our life, and then we can start to reduce our anxiety. And then it just becomes common practice, and then eventually we start to realise, I'm actually quite a confident person. So for example, I can give you something that I did, which I called the Sauna Experiment. And just before I started doing the Sauna Experiment, I started off with step 1. So, step number 1 was connect with people and make eye contact. Smile. Yes, it feels weird. I'm doing it right now. It feels very weird. It does feel weird. But step 1, I don't need to think about being the most confident person public speaking until I've even just connected with people and started smiling first. Then I moved on to step 2, which again, as you can see, step 1's always the biggest step because it's actually getting ourselves into something that is uncomfortable. So step 2 was just start small talk and not like an actual conversation, more of just like, hi, how are you? And then get on with my day. Walk past people, smile, then say, hi, how are you? And I did this on a weekly basis. So it would be week 1, week 2, etc. So then I went to step 3, which was start smaller conversations. Hi, how are you? Oh, where are you from? I've seen you here. And I used the gym as an example because that's where I personally did it. Oh, where are you from? Do you come here often? And I just used generic questions. And this is what really helped me with my social anxiety. As I said, remember the Sauna Experiment because this will be a worldwide phenomenon one day. I guarantee you. Step number 4 was then actually learn about conversational skills. How can I be a better conversationalist? And this came down to some of the books I read. The best book that I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People, because it really allowed me to learn how to speak to people. And also one little golden nugget on top of that is you don't have to have different conversations with everyone. You can have the same framework of a conversation. For example, when I would sit in the sauna with people as my sauna experiment, as I said, some people just wouldn't talk to me. And I literally had some lady and I was like, "Hi, you're right, how was your swim?" And she literally went, "I don't talk in the sauna." And I was like, "Oh, okay." You will get that, so expect it. And use them as funny stories, because I now use that as a story and it was honestly hilarious. I felt really awkward and I was like, "All right, I'm getting out." And this was after I even done this. This was like, I think only a couple of years ago. And I was like, "Oh, that's really weird." But some people are just like that, and that's okay. So I started to learn about conversational skills, and this is where I would literally sit there and, as I said, have the same frame and literally say, "Hi, how are you? How's your day going? Oh, do you come here often? Oh, I've seen you in here before. What are you working out today?" And I would delegate. I would speak about something that was related to where I was. And I used my senses. What can I see? Are they wearing a red jumper? Oh, what brand is that? Oh, I like that brand. Why do you like that brand? Using what you can see around you, what you can hear. Oh, that sound. I really like that sound of that song that just played. Or have you heard that song before? What music do you like? And then you can start to expand on your questions. But you first start learning with your conversational skills, and then you can start to get to your goal. Now, obviously, public speaking, I wouldn't say that's step 5 personally. The only reason I've put that there is because I don't have any more room, so I can't make any more steps. I've literally got to the end. I should have started over there. But the reason I've put it there is because if that's your goal, now it could just be to be a good conversationalist, and that could be your step 5. So it doesn't necessarily have to be public speaking. And if you have anxiety, or you're like me and you did have anxiety, but you do want to do that, then go for it. But that's still, for me, probably step 10, and I've only done it a couple of times, and that's why I do a lot of videos, because that was a relative step for me to become better at speaking, for me to talk about topics, for me to teach something so that I'm able to do that in the future. So then don't think about step 5 until you've done step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Don't cross that bridge before we get to it. Don't think about starting conversations before you've even made eye contact with people. It doesn't make logical sense. So this really is how to overcome social anxiety. Exposure, become aware of our thoughts, integrate it into our life, then we can move to the steps model. We can start to take step 1. What is step 1? If you already do that, then make small talk your step 1. Walking up to cashiers at the shops and, "Hi, how's your day going? Oh, it's beautiful weather outside." All these little things, the small talk. They don't know that you're doing that. They just think you're being polite. So it's going to help you regardless, but also you're training your confidence muscles. You're reducing your anxiety, you're increasing your confidence. But you're not saying, "I'm going to go from anxious to confident." You're saying, "I'm going to become confident." And eventually you start to take step by step by step by step by step. And then in a year's time, you won't even realize that you literally do it without realizing. And now that's how I work. That's literally how I live. I will just start conversation with people if I want to. Like, sometimes I just don't. But if I want to, I will just start conversation with people because I genuinely just do it because that's who I am now. And then when I say integrate, it just becomes part of our personality. And as I said earlier about anxiety becomes part of our personality if we always think that way. Eventually, being a good conversationalist, being confident, then becomes part of our personality. So remember that, and comment down below which was your favourite part of this video, which steps surprised you the most. Was it these or the actual steps? And with that being said, have an amazing day. Keep spreading love, kindness, and so much positivity.